Welcome to the Buncombe County Almanac here at the Asheville Guitar Bar. It's time for 3 minutes with Steimy. That's John Steinman here. I met John up at the Lobster Trap, 6 or 7 years ago now. Quite the storyteller, and we were sitting here discussing the LeGros Hognut Festival. Correct, John?
Well, if you could say it that way, but if you lived there, you'd say LeGros.
LeGros.
Yes, with the first syllable emphasized, where the Wabash River runs through Perry Township, Indiana, and there are remnants of the locks from the old Wabash and Erie Canal that still exists there. And when they were digging the canal, they hired, of course, who else? The expendable laborers, not the Chinese, but the Irish. And there were Irish Catholics and there were Irish Protestants, and there was contention between them. And
well, that's where I come in. If it's Irish, I'm interested in the story.
Don't start telling your Irish stories.
No.
Especially the off-color ones. So I know you got a few.
100.
Just a few.
Well, they had a war. The Irish Catholics came from one direction, from LeGros, I think. Maybe it's the opposite. The Irish Protestants took off from Wabash, where they were camped. They were digging toward one another. And they met out between LeGros and Wabash, and that's kind of no man's land. But there's a creek there. Runs into the Wabash River from the north side. Goes under the railroad tracks now, but there was no railroad there then. So they met out on this big field, and they were armed with picks and shovels and implements of construction that they used at work digging the canal. But somebody's priest or minister, it was a holy man, showed up on the scene and talked them out of it, so not a drop of blood was shed. And they settled things amiably and dug until they met one another, just like the railroads did in the West.
Well, tell me about the Hognut Festival.
That takes place in LeGros
LeGros.
annually. I question as to whether it happened this year, but for many years previous. And it's a typical social event in Indiana. They eat a lot of corn and they eat the hog nuts and fry them up and
Deep fry them?
I think you can get them just about any way you want. I think there's such a thing as a hog nut roll, where they wrap it up in rice and slice it in little sections. And
How many people actually want them?
Oh, that's everybody except maybe for me. And there is a disclaimer on the ad that they put in the paper. It says ham is available for those who don't like hog nuts. So the other staple of Indiana cuisine is pork. Well, I guess hog nuts are pork too. I never thought of it that way, but they are.
Different part of the pork.
Different part of the pork. There's a bait store there, right in front of where they block off the streets in the town. And there's a bait store there. But they sold bait in vending machines in the 60s. First time I ever saw that. So you could go up at night and buy night crawlers, like for $1 for a dozen night crawlers out of this vending machine. But the vending machine wasn't refrigerated. So you were really taking a chance on whether what kind of shape the night crawlers or even minnows would be in. And of course you couldn't put paper money in those days. You had to have the correct change, quarters. So I always kept a big roll of quarters in the truck.
Bait
just
money.
In case I needed
Bait money.
Bait money.
Yeah, I did that a time or two. Then you drive across the bridge, and you can either take a right on Durnball Road, or you can take a left on Bumbauer Road. And I'd usually take a left on Bumbauer Road, go down to the bridge at Hanging Rock, which is now a nature preserve, and the confluence of the Wabash and the Salamone Rivers is right there nearby. And you could catch some nice catfish and maybe a bass now and then and some panfish and even a walleye or a sauger, which is very near to a walleye. So there at Hanging Rock was kind of a makeout spot. You know, you take a six-pack and a girl and watch the sun come up, if you were lucky that night. There's a bridge. The bridge has one of those aluminum guardrails, and there's a big dent in the guardrail. And at some point back, I think in the 70s, a member of the Swan family, whose name I cannot remember, was unloading rocks from some construction site into the river there, just dumping the rocks in the river, which was okay to do in those days. And he got off balance, and the boom from the piece of equipment he was using hit the bridge, dented the bridge, flipped him over into the creek and killed him, into the river. And the Swan family, who are from Legros, had some other bad luck. One of them was a pilot and had a small private plane, and several members of the family were killed in a plane crash as well. Then, in about 1994, Billy Swan became a volunteer for the Legros Volunteer Fire Department. On his first day as a volunteer, a call came in a couple miles away on Durnball Road, and there had been a wreck. Billy Swan drove out there. The guy that hit somebody, he was pulling a boat. Somebody hit his boat. He went ballistic. He was drunk. He was a mental health counselor at the big Fisher body plant over in Marion, Indiana. He got out, took his gun, shot the people, killed them that had hit his boat. Somebody came down from the house on the hill. He shot them. Somebody else in the house called 911. Billy Swan shows up in his private vehicle, as most volunteer firefighters do, and he shot Billy Swan. Killed him. Police and everybody, imaginable, came and checked out the scene, arrested the guy. Somebody noticed 2 tire tracks going out into the cornfield. And they said, oh, we better look at that. And that's where Billy Swan ended up. He shot him right in his truck as he was pulling up, and he went out in the cornfield and died. His truck was still running. I was working as a firefighter in Florida then. When I heard about it, we went around and collected money from everybody and donated it to the Legros, Indiana, Perry Township Volunteer Fire Department, and there is a flagpole there with a little plaque in Billy Swan's name. His first day.
Now you write a lot of songs. You ever write any songs about back home?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Written songs about.
You want to play one right now?
Why not? This is about my friend Butch. Butch was a Marine. Butch went to Vietnam and he survived very well. His name was Walter Eugene Warren. Rest his soul. Hit a telephone pole on an icy road and died in about 1993. He's a very colorful individual, and he had 2 bluebirds tattooed right here. And someplace on his body it said USMC, but I can't remember where. But those bluebirds were beautiful. And they faced each other and they were in flight. And they called him Butch, Butchwax. The Gov.
Butchwax?
Butchwax. Governor, Walt, Wally, Walter, Weaver. I never knew where that came from. Warrant officer. Had a lot of nicknames. And he deserved them because he was really colorful. So. I'm walking up Hill Street in the rain. Here comes another train. And the signal light goes dark. I cut through the city park. When that cannonball goes by and I hear that whistle cry, it makes me think about my friend. He ain't coming back again. Riding down Pike Street in my car, I wonder where all my old friends are. There's a graveyard on the right. I'm gonna talk to him tonight. I'm gonna play his last request. I'm square is laying flat. It ain't never coming back. I'm gonna play his last request. I'm gonna tell him what he missed. I'm gonna tell him how it's been. I'm gonna talk to my old friend. And Butch's ghost is looking down at everybody in this town. It ain't never gonna change. Here comes another train.
A little slice of Indiana from John Steinman. Thanks, John.
Yeah, you're gonna come back and see us, aren't you?
I'll be back. Try to get rid of me.
More stories, I think?
I think we
They're
got
pretty
some
much
more.
endless.
They're endless at this point. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Not a fucking word of that was true.